If you have ever walked into a room and felt yourself shrink before you even crossed the threshold. If you have ever caught yourself scanning faces, searching for approval, measuring your worth in glances, in messages left unseen, in how much space you are allowed to take up, then listen carefully. Jung would not say you are insecure. He would not say you are weak. He would say you are living far away from the center of your own kingdom. You live in a world that trains you to think like someone waiting to be chosen. You are taught to ask, do they like me? Am I enough for them? Did I impress them? Do I deserve to be here? But the psyche does not bow to culture. It bows to truth. And the truth is simple. You were never meant to live like a guest in your own life. Somewhere in you there is a different way of thinking, a way of standing in your own soul that reorganizes the world around you without you chasing, begging, or proving. Jung called it the movement from object to subject, from the one who is judged to the one who judges, from the one who waits outside the door to the one who decides who is allowed to enter. This is the psychology of sovereignty, the inner posture of the queen. Not the queen as an image you post, not as a slogan you repeat, but as an archetype, a deep pattern in the unconscious that knows exactly how it feels to sit at the center of your own life. When a woman remembers this posture, something subtle but undeniable happens. She stops running after people who are walking away. She stops auditioning for rooms that don't recognize her. She stops negotiating with her worth as if it were up for debate. Her thinking shifts, and reality follows. In the next minutes, you will not learn how to act like a queen. You will see, with Jung as your guide, why your life starts to change the moment you stop thinking like a supplicant and start thinking from the throne within. You will see the 5 hidden patterns of thought that quietly strip you of your sovereignty, and the 5 pillars of queen thinking that turn your mind into a field of quiet magnetism. Because the secret is not that queens are born different. The secret is that they remember what everyone else has forgotten. They were never here to be chosen. They were always here to choose. Before a queen loses her throne in the outer world, she loses it in her mind. Not all at once, not through catastrophe, but through 5 subtle patterns of thinking, 5 quiet shifts inside the psyche that slowly pull a woman away from the center of her own sovereignty. Jung would say these patterns do not come from weakness. They come from long years of adaptation, from childhood survival, from a lifetime of forgetting that you were meant to sit at the center, not the edges, of your own life. Let us name these patterns, because once named, they begin to lose their power. 1. The supplicant thinking. This is the first crack in the inner crown, the moment you ask the silent question, am I good enough to be chosen? It may sound humble, but it is the seed of self-abandonment. You walk into rooms already wondering if you deserve to stay. You speak while listening for approval between your own words. You make choices only after measuring what others might think. Jung would say this is the life of the object, the person who waits to be evaluated, chosen, validated before she can take a step. But a queen is not an object, she is a subject, the one who sees, chooses, and defines the field around her. 2. The pleasing mind. This pattern is praised by society and punished by the soul. You read people like weather, you bend your tone to keep peace, you hide certain truths so you don't disturb the room, you scan constantly, not for danger but for expectation, and slowly the inner self grows faint. Jung would say your persona, the mask, has taken the place of your essence. When you live for harmony at any cost, you pay that cost with your own authenticity. If your peace requires self-erasure, it is not peace. It is captivity. 3. The mirror thinking. This is the most exhausting prison, living inside comparison. You watch others and feel yourself shrink or swell depending on their light. Someone else's beauty diminishes yours. Someone else's success turns your own into dust. Someone else's confidence becomes proof of your inadequacy. Your worth becomes a reflection borrowed from others, never originating from within. Jung taught that when your identity depends on external mirrors, you lose your psychic center. You become scattered, fragmented, hungry for validation that never lasts. Your value is not a reflection, it is an emanation. Your radiance does not compete, it simply shines. 4. The shrinking logic. This is the quiet death of many women's inner royalty. You lower your voice so it won't shake the air. You lower your needs so no one feels burdened. You lower your dreams so you don't threaten anyone's comfort. You fold yourself into smaller and smaller shapes, believing it makes you easier to love, but Jung would say the self, the true center, cannot thrive inside a cage, even if the cage is polite, even if the cage is praised. The psyche begins to wither when you shrink your truth to fit inside someone else's expectations. Your desires are not excessive, they are directions pointing toward the life meant for you. 5. The powerless story. This is the heaviest pattern, the one that makes the crown disappear completely. Life just happens to me. I don't get to choose. It feels logical, it feels realistic. Sometimes it even feels wise, as if accepting helplessness is the same as accepting reality. But Jung insisted that this is a psychic collapse, a moment when a woman forgets that she is the author of her own story. When everything becomes fate, you no longer see the throne waiting behind you. You only see the world as something you must endure. You cannot control life, but you can always control how you shape your inner world. And your inner world shapes everything. There comes a moment in a woman's life when something inside her refuses to keep powering the life she has outgrown. It doesn't arrive with drama, it arrives quietly, as a sudden heaviness in conversations you used to tolerate, as a restlessness in relationships you once excused, as a tightening in your chest every time you return to the job or role that no longer fits the truth of who you are. Most people call it irritability, they call it burnout, they call it being off, as if discomfort were a flaw. But Jung would tell you something far more powerful. You are not off. You are awakening. Your self is withdrawing its energy from everything unworthy of the woman you are becoming. When the psyche senses that a chapter has ended, it does what nature always does. It pulls its life force back into the roots. It stops energizing what is false. It stops motivating what is misaligned. It stops cooperating with the identities you constructed for survival. This withdrawal feels like exhaustion, but it is actually clarity. It feels like heaviness, but it is actually liberation beginning to take shape. It is your soul saying, this life has become too small for you. Think of a river that changes direction. The water does not apologize to the old riverbed it can no longer fill. It simply follows its deeper pull. Your inner life works the same way. You feel it in subtle ways. The friend you always comforted now drains you instantly. The office you endured for years now feels suffocating the moment you step in. The mask you once wore effortlessly now feels unbearable on your skin. The habits that numbed you for so long no longer work. Your spirit is reclaiming what you once gave away out of fear, politeness, or innocence. And when this reclamation begins, you stand between two worlds, the world you've outgrown and the world you have not yet stepped into. This threshold is not comfortable, it is not familiar, it is not easy, but it is sacred because from this point forward, you are no longer held in place by the momentum of your old identity. You are being pulled toward the truth of your sovereignty. There is a line inside you, it's invisible, quiet, unannounced, that once crossed, changes everything. It is the moment you stop asking, "Am I good enough for this?" and instead ask, "Is this good enough for me?" That single reversal is the psychological signature of a woman stepping back into her throne. Jung described this shift as the movement from object to subject. The object is the one being evaluated, measured, chosen, compared, approved, or dismissed. Most women are taught, subtly, consistently, to live as objects, to be pretty enough, likable enough, accommodating enough, harmless enough to be accepted. But the subject, the sovereign woman, is the one who evaluates. She decides what belongs in her life and what does not. She chooses who enters her world and who does not. She discerns what aligns with her truth and what must fall away. This shift is not loud, it is not aggressive, it is not performative, it is internal. It is the sensation of sitting back down in the center of your being after years of standing at the edges of your own existence. When you return to the throne within, something profound happens. You stop negotiating with your worth. You stop justifying your needs. You stop shrinking your desires to fit environments never meant to hold your value. Your energy changes, and so does the world around you. People who once evaluated you now look to you for evaluation. Dynamics that relied on your smallness begin to collapse. Relationships built on imbalance cannot survive your clarity. Opportunities you once chased begin to approach you. Because when you think like a queen, your consciousness becomes law inside your kingdom. Not law over others, but law over your own energy. You decide what you tolerate, you decide what you accept, you decide what grows and what withers. The throne is not a symbol of dominance, it is a symbol of centeredness. When you sit in it, your energy no longer leaks outward toward validation, approval, or permission. Your center becomes the axis around which your world reorganizes. This is the secret of the queen mind. A sovereign woman does not seek alignment. She becomes alignment. She does not chase resonance. She is resonance. She does not hope others treat her as valuable. She treats herself as valuable, and others follow the pattern she sets. And now that you stand at this threshold, half in the world you are leaving, half in the world rising to meet you. A queen does not attract through effort. She attracts through orientation, the inner stance from which she thinks, moves, and chooses her life. Jung taught that when a woman returns to the axis of her own self, her energy becomes a field, and that field shapes the world around her. These 5 pillars are the architecture of that sovereign field. They are not techniques. They are not strategies. They are the natural expressions of a woman who has remembered her throne. 1. The pillar of centrality. I am the axis, not the accessory. Every woman who reclaims her sovereignty begins with this realization. I am the center of my world. Not the center in a selfish sense, the center in a structural sense, the axis around which your decisions and your destiny unfold. For too long, you may have lived as an accessory, an addition to someone else's story, an extension of someone else's desires, a background character in your own life. But queen thinking begins the moment you return to your center. You no longer ask, what do they want me to do? You ask, what is true for me? You no longer act from fear, from pleasing, from habit. Your choices begin to rise from the deep well of your inner truth. Jung wrote that the self is the organizing principle of the psyche. When you think from your center, your life organizes itself around you. Everything becomes clearer. Your boundaries, your priorities, your direction. A woman who thinks from her axis radiates quiet authority. She does not sway with every opinion. She does not collapse under every judgment. She stands. She knows. She chooses. 2. The pillar of discernment. Not do they like me, but do they align with me? This pillar reshapes everything about how you relate to people. Most women have been conditioned to monitor external approval, to adjust themselves to be liked, accepted, chosen. But a queen does not move from the desire to be chosen. She moves from the clarity of who she chooses. Relationships no longer form by accident. They form by resonance. You stop asking, do they want me? And begin asking, do they fit the integrity of my kingdom? Do they honor my energy? Do they strengthen my peace? Discernment is not judgment. It is inner precision. It is the recognition that not every connection is meant to cross the borders of your sacred world. A queen does not open her gates randomly. Her selectivity is not arrogance. It is stewardship. When you think with discernment, your relationships become fewer, deeper, truer. You surround yourself not with those who merely desire you, but with those who respect your sovereignty. 3. The pillar of non-chasing. I am the signal, not the pursuer. This is one of the most misunderstood truths about feminine sovereignty. A queen does not chase, not because she is passive, but because she understands energetic law. Chasing collapses your field. It signals lack. It signals fear. It says, I believe the world is outside of me. But alignment signals magnetism. It signals fullness. It says, I believe what is meant for me can recognize me. A queen is the signal, not the seeker. Her presence broadcasts coherence. Her energy communicates her standards without a single word spoken. People feel it. Opportunities feel it. Life feels it. And the right things move toward her, not because she manipulates, but because she radiates. Non-chasing is not passivity. It is mastery. It is the recognition that what is aligned does not require pursuit, only presence. 4. The pillar of boundaries. What touches me does not automatically get to stay. Boundaries are not walls. Boundaries are the contours of your dignity. A woman without boundaries bleeds energy. She becomes overextended, overgiving, over-tolerating, a limitless well for people who contribute nothing back. But a queen understands that her energy is sacred. She knows that access is a privilege, not a default setting. She does not set boundaries to punish. She sets them to protect the integrity of her inner throne. Her no is clean, direct, without apology. Her yes is deliberate, chosen from truth, not obligation. And here is the deeper Jungian truth. Boundaries are the external expression of your internal structure. They are the physical shape of your psychic wholeness. When you think like a queen, you no longer accept every demand, every distraction, every request. You evaluate what enters your kingdom and what must be escorted out. This is not harshness, it is sovereignty. 5. The pillar of synchronicity thinking. My frequency attracts what mirrors my sovereignty. This final pillar is what Jung called synchronicity, meaningful alignment between the inner world and the outer world. When you think like a queen, your inner order becomes so coherent that your outer world begins to reflect it, not through magic, through resonance. Chaos stops approaching you because you are no longer chaotic inside. People who prey on insecurity disappear from your orbit because your insecurity is healing. Opportunities rise because you are aligned enough to receive them. The world mirrors whatever frequency you hold. And when your frequency is sovereign, clear, grounded, whole, You attract experiences that echo that sovereignty back to you. This is not wishful thinking. This is psychological law. The moment you rise to your true inner posture, life responds. Synchronicity becomes your companion. Doors open without force. People appear at the right time. Paths unfold with a sense of inevitability. Not because you are lucky, but because you are aligned. These are the 5 pillars of Queen thinking, the 5 inner stances that turn your mind into a field of quiet magnetism. When you think from your axis, when you choose with discernment, when you attract through presence, when you guard your dignity, and when you trust synchronicity, life rearranges itself around you. Close your eyes for a moment, not to escape the world, but to enter the deeper world within you. There is a throne inside your chest, not golden, not jeweled, but carved from the truth of who you are. It has waited through every season of your forgetting. It has watched you shrink, bend, apologize, endure, and it has waited without judgment. Now imagine yourself standing before it. The air around you feels still, as if the psyche itself is holding its breath. This is not fantasy. This is an initiation, the moment a woman steps back into her own authority. In this inner chamber, ask yourself the first question: whom have I given the power to define my worth? A face may appear, a memory, a role you outgrew, a voice you no longer need to obey. Let it surface. Now the second question: what in my life no longer aligns with my dignity? Feel the weight of what must be released. Habits, dynamics, expectations that no longer honor your truth. And finally, the most sacred question: what does the Queen within me ask me to change? First, do not force the answer, let it rise. When you open your eyes, you return not as who you were, but as who you are becoming. This is your coronation, your inner enthronement, the moment you take your seat within yourself again. Here is the truth. You never had to become a queen. You only had to stop thinking like someone begging for a place in her own life. When you think like a queen, you do not ask for a seat at the table. You take your place without apology. You do not chase. You do not shrink. You do not twist yourself into shapes that betray your own dignity. You attract everything because your energy is no longer fragmented, it is real, and the world can only respond to what is real. So let me ask you, as you close this journey, which mindset do you feel rising in you now, the supplicant or the sovereign? Tell me in the comments. Your reflection may be the mirror another woman needs today, and if you want to keep walking this inner path, subscribe for more Jungian journeys into the soul.